Hello, my name is Burhana Islam, and I am the author of Amazing Muslims Who Changed the World. Welcome to this really special digital event, which is a part of 2021's Bradford Literature Festival Schools programme. Today I'm here to talk to you about how to be inspiring. My book, Amazing Muslims Who Changed the World, is a collection of biographies of people who have identified as Muslims from across the ages and across the globe. Here you'll find stories about warriors, warrior queens, who led their people, who freed prisoners of war. Here you'll find out about Noor Inayat Khan, a World War II spy who had the fate of the Allies in her hands for just a tiny moment in time. Here you'll find scholars, thinkers, explorers, map makers, ship trainers. Here you'll find a wide array of people who will show you what inspiring means. These very people have made their mark on the world in ways that you may or may not know. But before we even start, I want to know, what does it mean to be inspiring? What does being inspiring mean to you? Inspirational people come in all shapes, forms, and sizes. In your mind, what does it take for someone to be inspiring? What is it that makes them have that quality that everybody so wishes to have? So I'll give you a couple of minutes to think. So what is it that makes you inspiring? Like I said before, so inspiring people come in all shapes and sizes, and hopefully you've had a chance to discuss and have a conversation about what inspiring means to you. And to me, to be inspiring is to have some sort of charisma. Charisma means that you've got something inside yourself that's quite special. And it means that when you walk into a room, people listen to you. When you say something, people stop and think. When you're out and about and you're giving your opinion, or when you sit and listen, it means that actually that you mean something. And charisma is a part of being inspiring. It's when you do something that's not selfish. It's when you do something that's going above and beyond. It's when you may have limited means, so that just means where you might not have everything at your hands, but you try and strive hard anyway. There are so many examples of what it means to be inspiring. It could be little things in your day-to-day life, which actually are enormous things to you. So you can't kind of put a price on inspiring or kind of define inspiring, because it means different things to different people. And I bet you are all inspiring in your own ways. So before we talk about the inspiring people in this book, I want to tell you about what made me write this book and what inspired me. Because I know growing up, it can be quite hard to find people that look like you. Especially if it's in the media, in books, on posters, in magazines. It is quite difficult, especially when you look like me and you're Muslim, to find people that kind of fit with you. Sometimes you look at the television and you're like, that's not quite me. But I want to tell you just a little bit about the people that inspired Amazing Muslims. So before I go into what makes people inspiring, I thought I'd tell you what inspired me to write the book Amazing Muslims Who Changed the World. You may or may not know about some of these characters, but some of them will be a part of hidden Muslim history that you probably have never explored, because they definitely don't come up in your school curriculum. And some of them you have to try really, really, really hard to find. But believe it or not, there's actually a wealth of people, an array of people across the globe and across the ages who have influenced our history. It's just they're a little bit hidden. So when I was researching about all of these people and I saw what they were capable of, they made me think, you know what, maybe I am capable of doing something like this too. Maybe I can be inspiring. Maybe I can leave my mark on the world. So one of the reasons why I wrote Amazing Muslims Who Changed the World is I wanted to make sure that their history, their legacy, all the things that they kind of did that made a difference, it's not completely lost, because it's not easy to find. You can't walk in a bookshop and find things like this all the time. So hopefully now you can. Hopefully when you walk into a bookshop, you'll be able to find a copy of this. But let me tell you about one of the characters that I've written about. I say characters, but I mean historical figures. She's not actually on this cover. But there's a person that I absolutely love to talk about, and she was one of the first people to become Muslim. She was one of the first people to embrace Islam. And there was a time where the religion was spreading, and it was quite hard to show people about your faith because at that time it caused wars. So for her, for this person, it was quite difficult to declare her faith. But there came a time where she and her brother, and it's really important that we know about her brother, but she and her brother decided that they were going to tell people that they were Muslim. And then the religion actually grew into a movement that became stronger and stronger, and soon the call for war was made. And this woman, I'm not going to spoil too much before I read the story, but this woman actually showed us what real strength looked like. In this day and age, sometimes it's hard to find in your history books about people like this because they have been erased and forgotten from history. But hopefully this will be a little bit of an insight into the life of an incredibly strong and powerful woman who did not let gender stereotypes hold her back. So let me take you back to the year 600 and tell you about the masked knight. Her name was Khawla bint al-Azwa radiallahu anha. So, in the early 7th century, in an oasis of Arabia, there lived a fierce little girl born to the powerful chief of the Bani Asad tribe. Her name was Khawla bint al-Azwa. Nobody could have guessed that she would grow up to become an undefeated warrior in one of the greatest Islamic military forces of all time. From an early age, Khawla's brother Dirar, who loved her very much, taught her how to be a skilled fighter. Dirar was already a famous swordsman, known for his bravery on the battlefield, and he didn't see anything wrong with teaching his sister to be as brave as a warrior as he was. Khawla was a fast learner. She and her brother trained regularly with swords, lances, and spears under the heat of the desert sun. Their weapons would clink long into the night, and soon Khawla could almost match her brother's skill. At the time, a new religion was spreading across the Arabian Peninsula. It was called Islam, and Khawla and her family were some of the very first to accept it. But not everybody was happy with the new religion, and soon wars broke out. A call to arms was made to defend Islam against the Byzantine Empire. Khawla and her brother immediately answered that call. Following the command of the formidable army general Khalid ibn Walid, they made their way to war. However, Khawla quickly learned that she would not be allowed to fight. Along with other women, her role on the battlefield was to tend to the injured men on the front line. She cleaned wounds, bandaged limbs, and provided shelter for those who had been hurt. Then, when the day came, Khawla, from the edge of the battleground, witnessed her brother being struck from his horse and dragged into the merciless hands of their foe. Furious and frightened by his capture, Khawla stormed into the supply tent. She dressed herself in black before putting on a suit of armour and a green sash. With her face covered, leaving only slits for eyes, she charged into the fray on horseback, with sword and spear at hand. The soldiers gazed in awe as the unknown masked knight slashed and massacred the enemy. The men in Khawla's army fell behind her, and before long she was leading a troop of her own. She hunted down those responsible for kidnapping Dirar. Not only did she attack their ranks and save her brother, but she also rescued countless other prisoners who were captured by the other side. When the battle ended, the Muslim commander Khalid ibn Walid searched endlessly for the masked knight who had shown such bravery and skill with a sword. When he finally found the knight, covered with the blood of the enemy and still clad in black, he demanded the warrior reveal his true identity. Reluctantly, Khawla uncovered her face. It was only then that the general realized that it was a woman who had fought so courageously in his ranks. Only then did he realize that he needed Khawla by his side. From that moment on, Khawla bint al-Azwa served beside Khalid ibn Walid in battle. Khawla remained undefeated when she eventually hung up her spear and left her military days behind her. An interesting fact about her is at one point in her life, Khawla was actually captured, It is said that the Byzantium leader who took her asked for her hand in marriage. He promised to make her the richest and most powerful woman in the ancient city of Damascus. Insulted, she threatened to chop off his head. Then she rallied the other female prisoners into escaping, using their tents as poles and spears. The women held their ground long enough for Khalid ibn Walid's forces to intervene. In the end, she killed the gentleman who proposed to herself. How romantic. So now that you've heard a little bit about Khala bint al-Aswa, I want you to have a think about what makes her inspiring. Which part of the story did you find most inspiring? There are so many moments. I want you to think about from the beginning to the end of the story. So read it back and think, which part was the most inspiring? Which part led you to think that she was a powerful warrior? Is it always physical strength that makes somebody inspiring? Or is it there a different kind of strength, possibly like a strength of the mind? So really have a think. What is it that makes somebody like her inspiring? And how could you adopt her attitude? What parts of or what qualities does she have that you think, you know what, I could adopt this in my everyday life? Is it her strength to battle against stereotypes? Is it her skill and dedication to swordsmanship? Is it the part where, even though she was so scared that her brother had been hurt, that it didn't matter? Someone she loved had actually fallen, and to her that was enough of a reason to risk her life, despite being a woman. And bearing in mind, this was 1400 years ago. This was over 1400 years ago. They didn't expect that from women. But was it that bit there? Was it when she led the army? Was it when she took back the prisoners of war? So really have a think. This was a fierce woman. And when you think about Islam, when you think about inspiring people, don't forget about Khala bint al-Aswa, because she was a person who defied gender stereotypes. In an age where it's perceived, where it's thought, where people were oppressed. So remind yourselves of Khala bint al-Aswa, the female warrior who actually saved her brother and fought beside one of the most famous military commanders during the Islamic age. Okay, now you've listened to a story, you've heard about some inspirational people, you know that they come from across the ages and across the globe, and you have had a thought of how you can adopt their characteristics in your own everyday life. So perhaps that you can be as inspiring one day. I just wanted to thank you for listening, for tuning in, and for being a part of this school's program. And hopefully you will have got something out of that, even if it's a little takeaway of what inspiring means to you. And maybe you can tell your friends and family about Khala bint al-Aswa and people like her too. So until next time, I will be signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Goodbye.